So, team's coming over tonight. What kind of haunt do you want to be?
Intelligent. Hey guys, Tim Arnold here, long-haired ghost hunter, author of Ghost Hunting Getting Started and co-founder of Ghostly Experiences. Welcome to Ghost Hunting Getting Started, episode 3. Okay, now if you're new here, welcome and thank you. I want you guys to meet Sammy. How you doing? Good. What? How do we communicate? Oh, yeah. I know you have no ears. And mine are full of hair. Yeah, you're right. I get that from my dad. So, this episode, we're going to talk about types of hauntings, weather and ghost hunting, and then our first aid tip of the week. So, let's get started. Okay. Types of hauntings. There's 5 of them. Now, the first one is intelligent. Now, this type of haunting will try to communicate with you, interact with you. These type of hauntings will trip your devices, either for no reason, or they might be around, or a request. Like, hey, if you're here, light up the REM pod. Oh, great. Do that again. Okay. Now, these type of hauntings will present themselves as audibles, like EVPs, disembodied voices. They may show up on video, pictures, apparitions, shadows. Right. Next, residuals. Now, residual haunting is compared to like a piece of film looped in time, just going over and over and over. Okay. Residuals are not intelligent. They don't know you're there. Now, residuals can result from a traumatic experience or repeated actions. Residuals can appear set date and time. So if you're setting up an investigation, try to always work on the client's time frame. Because if they're experiencing a residual, you have a better shot of getting evidence. And another thing about residuals, you may get a call saying, hey, under security cameras, we caught a figure going through a wall. Okay, think about it. Repeated actions. Now, let's say it's a hotel. Okay. Now, think about this. This person may have walked down this short hallway every day they worked there, part of their job. But through renovation, now this, back in the day, this could have been a room, short hallway, another room. But through renovations, they might have expanded this room, taken away the hallway. Now there's a wall. So actually the residual is just doing what they always did, walking down the hallway. Okay. Now, residuals can be experienced as visual, sounds, or smells. Now, smells are real big with residuals. Most common is tobacco, flowers, perfume. Okay. Next up, poltergeists. Now, poltergeists, I know we covered it last week as a form, but now that you're going to go out and investigate, it's always a good idea to kind of label the type of haunting. It just looks more professional. And you could have, you could have a intelligent, residual. You could have a poltergeist residual. So it's always good to label the type of haunting. Like you said, it's more professional. Okay. Now, poltergeist, same thing. They're a noisy ghost. They cause physical disturbances, which means they can move things. There's been reports of things being thrown. They can have knocking sounds. They can turn things on and off. All right. Next, demonic. Now, demonic is the most rare, but the most feared hauntings. Okay. The theory is that a person can become oppressed or possessed by a spirit entity ghost. Okay. The frightful thing is now this person now has incredible strength and abrupt mood changes, which include rage, so they can harm themselves or others. but they're rare. So hopefully you never run into them. Okay. Last one, attachments. Now, the theory of attachments are that there's an undesirable attachment of something to a person. Okay. Now, the difference between demonic and attachments are that attachments power varies. It can be something like they don't even know they have an attachment. I've met people over the years that said, hey, last year someone was attached to me. I didn't even know it until someone pointed it out. Okay. Or the power can vary to where it'll drain your energy, cause mood changes. Now, another theory with attachments are items can be attached, like, furniture, jewelry, toys, dolls. Now, this is a double edge. There's actually some people who will go out and purposely look for something to bring home with them that's attached. Okay. But most people, they won't bring anything home or buy anything from, like, let's say, antique stores, auctions, estate sales, or garage sales, because they're fear of something being attached. Okay. Now, a lot of investigators, I would say most investigators, will not bring anything home from an investigation for the same reason. They don't want to bring home anything attached. Okay. Now, I've been doing this over 20 years, and I've been asked dozens and dozens of times, has anything ever come home with you? Well, no, not that I know of. I've worked with a lot of psychics, mediums, empaths, and I'm sure they would have brought it up if someone was attached to me. So, now, this is a personal belief. This is what I do. Okay. After every investigation, some people get saged. I do every now and then. But for the most part, I just simply say, listen, you can't come home with me. You're not going to be welcomed. You need to stay here. Okay. And I guess it's worked. Okay. What? Can I tell if something's attached to you? Sammy, the only thing attached to you is that hat. Okay. So that's your 5 types of hauntings. Now let's get into weather and ghost hunting. Now remember the physics rule. Energy can't be created or destroyed, only transferred. Well, weather changes come because there's a movement or transfer of energy. Okay. Now, it's long been believed that increased thunderstorm activity increases ghostly activity. Okay. So here's what's happening. The atmosphere, it has, it's full of electrical and electromagnetic energy. Now, as the ions are charged, lightning is produced. Now, when that energy is expended, electrical and electromagnetic energy is released. So the ideal time to investigate, a lot of people believe, is during an electrical storm. Okay. Don't be outside though. Okay. Now there's 3 factors with weather. 1, humidity. Now humidity is linked to how much energy a storm can hold. It's also the reason why ions are charging. 2, temperature. Now, temperature is the average amount of kinetic energy. So as kinetic energy rises, so does temperature. And then barometric pressure. Now, barometric pressure is also known as atmospheric pressure. Okay. Now, as barometric pressure falls and continues to fall, a storm's en route. Now, there's a lot of investigators who will bring devices who measure barometric pressure. Okay, I do. I bring this to every investigation. It measures barometric pressure, temperature. I get the humidity from another device. Okay. Now, the theory is if there's changes in barometric pressure, there might be ghostly activity. But some investigators actually bring devices into the location to measure barometric pressure. But you got to be aware of two things. One, barometric pressure falls naturally at night. Okay. And inside, the slightest thing can change barometric pressure, like someone leaving a room, someone coming into a room. Okay. So just be aware of these things, and never, like anything else, never rely on one piece of evidence. Okay. Now, if you're investigating, you also got to be aware of a phenomenon called infrasound, FRA, infrasound. Infrasound is actually low frequency sounds. It's just below human hearing, but it will cause symptoms like dizziness, faintness, shortness of breath, nausea, panic, fear. Okay. The reason you have to be aware of this is because infrasound is caused by natural sources like wind, rain, thunder. Okay. Remember, you're out there looking for answers to their concerns, so you have to look at everything. Okay. Now, we took care of the stormy months. Okay, spring, summer. But you can't remember fall, winter. Can't forget that. Okay. Now, just think, if there's cold outside, you might get false cold spots inside if they have leaky windows, doors. Okay. So just consider all this because you're looking for answers. All right. So that's your weather and ghost hunting. Now, as most of you guys know or don't know yet, I'm a retired medic. So safety is real big for me. So every week we are going to have a first aid tip of the week. So here we go. All right, let's close her up. Relax. Let's catch up. Can I get some fries? Oh yeah, by the way, here's your first aid tip of the week. Okay. Now, remember last week I said we were going to do control bleeding. But I started thinking, I go, there's a few things we got to talk about before we get there. So this episode, we're going to be talking about types of bleeding, when to call 911, and shock. Yeah, shock is a dire emergency. Always call rescue. Okay. But let's get the obvious off the table. What we're talking about on these tips are first aid. That's it. Never get in the weeds on this. Don't try to do something you saw on TV. Nothing like that. If you ever have the slightest concern that you need help, or if someone, you're with needs help, call rescue. That's what they're there for. And most 911 operators, dispatchers, can give you advice of what to do while rescue's en route. So call rescue if you think you need it. All right? So let's talk about types of bleeds. Now there's three of them. One, capillary. Now capillary are the very small vessels in your body. A capillary bleed is basically road rash. Okay. Second, venous. Now this comes from the veins. So it's going to be dark blue and flowing. Okay. Now you can lose blood by a venous bleed, but it's a lot easier to control, which is what we'll talk about next week. Your big challenge is arterial bleeds. Now think of it this way. A for arterial, A for away. Now what's happening here is there's a hole in the hose per se. But behind it now is a force, because now the blood is being pumped away from the body, pumped away. So there's a force shooting it out. So arterial bleeds will be bright red and spurting. Okay. But we're going to talk about that all next week. I just want you to know the type of bleeds. All right. Next, when do you call rescue? Okay. First, remember we talked about impaled objects last time. Remember, you can't remove an impaled object, nor can you remove a person from an impaled object. So call rescue. Second, if there's a chance of any head or neck injury, okay, call rescue. Meantime, make sure they stay still. Support their head and neck. Like, just hold them here. Don't turn it. Just support it. Make sure they stay very still. Call rescue. Okay, because rescue can come and stabilize it to be preventive. Right. Next up, if the wound is so bad that you see different layers of skin, like, fatty tissue, things like that, call rescue. Okay. If you can't control the bleeding by the techniques we're going to talk about within 10 minutes, call rescue. Okay. And the big one, shock. Shock is a dire emergency. Always call rescue. Okay. Now, there's 5 incidents where really I've called rescue, but they got to get to an ER. Okay. First. Okay. If it's a gaping hole, they're going to need stitches. It's got to be flushed out and cleaned and everything before they stitch it. But if you wait too long, it's hard to stitch. Okay. Second, if the wound is near a joint, now think a joint is actually an encapsulated. So if there's damage to the joint, it could be permanent damage. So get them to an ER. Okay. Next, if the wound was caused by a really dirty, rusty object, okay, get them to an ER because it has to be flushed thoroughly and has to be treated. Okay. Tetanus shot, antibiotics, things like that. Next, bites. Animal, person, don't matter. The mouth is a dirty place. So it's going to have to be treated, flushed out, and treated. Okay. And then the last one's easy, especially for guys. Any wounds around the private parts, get them to an ER. Okay. Now, let's talk about shock. Shock is dire. I can't stress it enough. It's an emergency. Rescue has to be taken care of. Okay. They have to be called. Okay. The shock we're talking about is hypovolemic. A hypovolemic shock is fluid loss. Okay. Now, the person's going to have cool, clammy, pale skin, like a cold sweat. They're going to be pale. Their breathing is going to be rapid and shallow or difficulty breathing. The heartbeat's going to be very rapid. If you know how to take a pulse, it'll be obvious. You can always compare yours to theirs. I'll tell you how rapid it is. They may have some called palpitations where they feel their heart jumping out of their chest. Okay. They're going to be confused and they're going to complain of thirst or dry mouth. Okay. If they have any of those signs, I can't stress it enough. Call rescue. Okay. Now, in the meantime, what you could do is carefully lie them down. Okay. Support their elevate their legs above the heart level, cover them up, keep them warm, and just monitor everything. Okay. Monitor how they're acting. If possible, keep 911 operator on the line. Most times they'll stay on the line. And just let them know if there's any changes. But call rescue. It's a dire emergency. Okay? So that's your first tip of the week. Your first aid tip of the week. Change something real quick. Boom. Okay. Now, questions, comments, tips. If you have any, send them in to longhairghosthunter@gmail.com. I can cover on the show. I can cover them here. Or if you need an answer, I'm always looking on my email. I can respond to you. Okay? All my information's on the ticker below. I can be found at longhairghosthunter.com, Longhair Ghost Hunter YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or ghostlyexperiences.net. The book, Ghost Hunting Getting Started, is on Amazon. Okay, if you guys are in the South Florida area or you're going to be visiting here, if you want to take part in the paranormal boot camp, go to ghostlyexperiences.net. Now, what we do in that is we teach like an hour, how to do an investigation, how to get investigations. We go over all the tools, but then we break right into an investigation at a historic location. Okay. So if you're interested in that, ghostweekexperiences.net. Half the proceeds do stay with the location. So you're helping the location as well. If you are in the South Florida area and you think you're having activity, reach out to me, longhairghosthunter@gmail.com. Okay. Now, remember, 9:45 tonight, we're going to go live on Long Hair Ghost Hunter YouTube, and we're going to have an interactive session. You can type in comments, tips, questions. Tips are good because we can always learn from each other. 9:45. Okay. And remember, every Wednesday night we are here with another episode. And and please send in anything you have. Love to hear from you guys. So if you guys are out there investigating, be very careful, be safe. Thanks a lot. Sammy, good night. Yeah, I'll work on the hairs. Okay.